Welcome to the Fusion 360 API Training Labs. This video is going to give a broad overview of the course and the 4 labs, as well as discuss the importance of the API, and then we're going to show you what you're going to be able to accomplish by the end of the 4 labs and the course outcomes. Now, this course is designed for all types of users, whether you're a new user and don't have API experience, or you are familiar with APIs but you just want to get familiar with the Fusion 360 API. Now this course is going to teach you how to use the API to create utilities and tools to automate CAD modeling. To help you understand what the API is, API stands for Application Programming Interface. So think of Fusion 360 as having an engine that creates all of the geometry and the data that we need. Now there's 2 ways to control and to run this engine and to tell the engine what to do. The first is the graphical user interface, and the other is the application programming interface, or the API, and that's what we're going to be focusing on. Now you're probably used to the graphical user interface, and let me show you an example. So this here is the user interface, and we can control the engine or tell the engine what to do by a series of clicks, and through dialog boxes we can select this profile, and making selections here is telling the engine what to do, and we just made a little gear here. Now the other way to do that, like we said, is the API, or the application programming interface. So this here is an example of using the programming interface in a program called Spider that we'll talk about later. But here we write some code or a program that we then send over to the engine, and it tells the engine what to do. So I have this code here, and if we go back to Fusion 360, I can run my code. So I'm actually going to hide this, and I'm going to run my code and see what I can do just by running the code that I had there. So we see that through this I can also create a gear, and the benefit of that is, what if I had an application where we needed several different pulleys or several different gears? Every time a different gear needed a different number of teeth or needed to be a different size, if I just had the graphical interface, I would have to create a new sketch and create a new extrude every single time for the different sizes. But if I have it in code, I could just go through and change that number of teeth in code a lot easier and a lot faster. So the API can be extremely useful. So for our entire labs, all 4 labs is going to be focused on tools, making tools for a 3D printer. So we're going to create 2 tools by the end of the 4 labs that will help in creating a 3D printer, but these tools honestly could be used in a lot of different applications. The first of the 2 tools is going to be a belt length calculator. So as you can see here in my 3D printer model, as we want to put 2 pulleys here, we need to also know how long the belt would need to be to go around those 2 points. So I created a tool here, and you will too, is by the end of the 4 labs. You can click here, and I can select the 2 points that I'm going to have pulleys at, and then I can tell it how big the diameter of the pulleys will be, and this is going to output to me the belt length that I'm going to need to go around those 2 pulleys at those 2 points. So that's the first tool that you will make. The second tool is going to be a pulley generator. So I can click on this. It lets me choose where to put the pulley. I can choose whether the shape of the teeth is square or round, and then I can choose the number of teeth. I can hit OK there, and it's going to automatically generate a pulley. And so if we were to do this through the graphical interface instead of the programming interface, we would have to do this by hand every single time over and over. So there we see that that created a pulley for us, and we could create another one quickly there. So those are the 2 tools that you will be able to have by the end of the 4 labs. But let's go ahead and look at each lab individually. What are the lab outcomes and what you'll be able to accomplish by the end of each lab. So for lab 1, you're going to learn how to create and run a script, or the file that contains your code. You're also going to learn about documentation and reference material that's available to you. You're going to learn about debugging tools, as well as how to start your code, create a sketch, and create some circles using code. And by the end of lab 1, you will be able to create a script that has 2 sketches with some circles inside it. Now for lab 2, we're going to learn about user selections, geometry query, input objects, and feature creation. So those first 3 are just learning how to make selections and grab certain geometry and then use those as input objects, as well as other things, to pass in for feature creation. And we'll learn more about those in lab 2. The deliverables for lab 2, there's actually 2. The first one is a belt length calculator, where you'll have the user select 2 points, and then you will take those points in and calculate how long a belt would need to be if there were 2 pulleys of a certain radius at those points. And then the second script will actually use feature creation to create a full pulley. For Lab 3, you're going to learn about parameters and assemblies. You're going to learn how to access and change the parameters, and then also use joints to create assemblies in Fusion 360. So the deliverable for Lab 3 is to take an existing pulley, change its parameters, and then assemble it to something. For the fourth and final lab, you're going to learn about buttons, dialog boxes, and add-ins. So you'll learn how to create a button in a dialog box that will pop up for the user interface, and then you'll package everything into an add-in, which is similar to a script, but unlike a script that just runs and ends, an add-in can run and continue to run throughout through the whole time the application is open, and we'll learn more about that in Lab 4. But for Lab 4, you're basically going to take everything that we did in Labs 1, 2, and 3 and put it into an add-in and create buttons and dialog boxes for your tools. So that's a quick overview of the 4 labs, and we hope that through these 4 labs you not only learn how to create these 2 scripts, but that you learn the fundamentals of the API so you can go on and create utilities and tools specific to your industry and for your passions. And then you could even come online here to the App Store and post those for others to use and download as well.